August 22nd, 1965, Janet Reimer gave birth to two beautiful baby boys, Brian and Bruce. What should have been a routine birth to home perfect family happy ending would turn into something tragic and downright evil. By the hands of one doctor and his radical theory, Dr. John Money, real name John William Money. At the age of 6 months, after concern was raised about how both of them urinated, the boys were diagnosed with phimosis, a condition that makes foreskin too tight to retract, making it hard to urinate. They were referred for circumcision at the age of 7 months. In Winnipeg, Canada, they were sent to a local hospital for routine circumcision. General practitioner Jean Marie Hewitt performed the operation using an unconventional method of electrocauterization. In the unfortunate and disgusting events, the medical equipment malfunctioned several times during the procedure, resulting in Bruce's entire private area being burnt and disfigured beyond surgical repair. Brian was not operated on, and his phimosis later cleared without surgical intervention. In the early 60s, plastic surgery was not an option. Months later, Janet and her husband Ron saw a television program that gave them some hope. Dr. John Money, a highly renowned sexologist, featured in a debate about how sex change operations on transsexuals. He had brought a transsexual with him who was convincingly feminine looking. Thinking this was hope during dark times, they wrote to Dr. Money, who responded quickly and invited them to come and visit him in Baltimore, Maryland. Dr. Money is a highly intelligent, well-respected, charismatic individual. He suggested to the Reimers that they bring their son up as a girl. Thus, when Bruce was 18 months old, he was castrated and a rudimentary vulva was created for him. The family now called him Brenda and tried to treat him like a little girl. Dr. Money was the answer to the Reimers' prayers, but they were the answer to his too. He had studied people known as hermaphrodites, now to refer to as intersex, who are physically both male and female, as it was surgically easier to turn them into females. This was standard practice at the time. Dr. Money used previous case studies of hermaphrodites to show a limited amount of time for surgery referred to him as the gender gate, which is only an option up until you are 2 years old. During that period, he argued, if these parents chose the sex of the child, the way they brought it up would determine the child's gender, not its physical characteristics. Until the Reimer family, Dr. Money had not put his controversial theory to the test on non-intersex children. Now that he had the perfect, unplanned opportunity to do so, a set of identical and biological twin boys, one of which would be raised as a girl. Janet Reimer would write to Dr. Money over the months and take family trips once a year to visit Dr. Money in Baltimore. To Brenda's dismay, she stated that she hated visiting Dr. Money. When Brenda was 5, Dr. Money published her case, and in order to hide her original identity, he referred to Brenda as Joanne/John in his books. The case was a big deal at the time. Many were using this as proof for nurture over nature, whether we feel feminine or masculine. Widely cited in many textbooks, the case was a landmark study, held as proof for the overwhelming force of nurture, in spite of the increasing evidence that hormones both in the womb and throughout the child's life play a huge part in an individual's perception of themselves as masculine or feminine. The Reimer family faced many difficulties. Brenda found herself fond to more traditionally masculine activities and loathed playing with dolls. Brenda found it hard to make friends and found herself increasingly lonely, as Brian, Brenda's brother, was embarrassed to play and interact with Brenda, which wasn't entirely Brian's fault. Dr. Money insisted that to fully understand that Brenda was a girl, she needed to grasp the difficulties between men and women, and frequently spoke to her about genitalia. He took photographs of her and her brother naked. He tried to persuade her to have a vagina constructed, which at the time would have been made out of the section of her bowel and from the skin of her thigh, which would have been inserted in the pelvic region. He showed her graphic photographs of women giving birth when she was 7 years old in an attempt to get her to agree to having a, air quotation, baby hole made. He also suggested strongly that she take hormone tablets in order to make her grow breasts when she was 12. Other scientists, including Dr. Money's ex-students, argued that he did these things in the best possible interest for his patient, to make her believe she was indeed a girl. Brenda, however, felt traumatized and became suicidal. Please keep this in mind for later. David attended R.B. Russell Vocational High School. He eventually ceased attending the school and was tutored privately. Around the age of 13 years, Reimer was experiencing suicidal depression and told his parents he would take his own life if they made him see money again. Finally, on March 14, 1980, Reimer's parents told him the truth about his sex reassignment. Following advice from Reimer's androcologist and psychiatrist, at the young age of 13, having been informed of his past by his father, Brenda was intensely relieved as she had felt she was going insane. Almost immediately, she turned herself back into a boy. Brenda decided to assume a male gender identity, calling himself David. He underwent treatment to reverse the reassignment mastectomy, including testosterone injections, a double, and a phalloplasty operation. Unfortunately, his relationship with his brother worsened. Brian had felt that David, as Brenda, had received all the attention when they were growing up. Once he discovered that he was no longer the only boy in the family, he had become extremely angry. It was a start of a mental disturbance that would develop into schizophrenia. After two failed marriages, he passed away, possibly of drug overdose, which may have been a suicide attempt. As an adult, Reimer worked in a slaughterhouse and then worked odd jobs. On September 22, 1990, he married Jane Fonnet and would adopt her three children. His hobbies included camping, fishing, antiques, and collecting old coins. His case came into international attention in 1997 when he told his story to Milton Damon, an academic sexologist who persuaded Reimer to allow him to report the outcome in order to dissuade physicians from treating other infants similarly. Soon after, Reimer went public with this story, and John Completo published a widely decimated and influential account on Rolling Stone magazine in December 1997. The article won the National Magazine Award for Reporting. This was later expanded into the New York Times best-selling biography, As Nature Made Him, The Boy Who Was Raised as a Girl, in which Completo described how, contrary to Money's reports, when living as Brenda, Reimer did not identify as a girl. He was ostracized and bullied by peers, who dubbed him Cave Woman, and neither frilly dresses nor female hormones made him feel female. Money's rationale for these various treatments was his belief that, in quotation, childhood sexual rehearsal play was an important for a healthy adult gender identity. Both David and Brian were traumatized, with Brian speaking about it only with the greatest emotional turmoil, and David unwilling to speak about the details publicly, although his wife, Jane Fonnet, stated that David had privately told her the same story. Stricken with grief for his brother, his marriage started to fail. Jane asked him for a short separation period, but David took this very badly. He returned to his parents' house for a few days before driving to a supermarket parking lot on May 4, 2004, and ending his own life. He was 38 years old. Dr. Money argues that he cannot be held to blame because David did not accept the female gender identity. He says that the family delayed making a decision until their son was almost 2, just before the gender gate was about to shut. Others, however, argue that he could have admitted he made a mistake when the case clearly was not working, for he continued to let people believe that he had been successful long after he had stopped seeing Brenda and she had become David. Dr. Money died on July 7, 2006 at the age of 84 in Townsend, Maryland, USA.